and what I guess I don't follow here is they're separating. How are they doing this? They're adding and subtracting that. Minus G minus C T. They're adding in some other things here, which I don't quite understand, but maybe you can say what that is. So they subtract T, but then they add T, which is no net change. Subtract C, that's fine. Then it's add T TR, and then they move the G over here and they subtract the TR. So there's no net change to the equation, but I'm not sure why this regrouping occurs.
Let me see what the.
And I guess what my guess here is that one of these is private and one of these is public.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because then that would equal investment.
Yes.
And private savings. I don't know why the TR is added.
Yes, and I don't know there's no information about what the subscript means in this problem.
Could it be tax revenue instead of
Sure.
spending?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, but I mean, in the end, it cancels out. But
yeah, but I think they're showing there's something like there's a reason you're adding it and subtracting it. I mean, it's got to cancel out, but there's a reason it's part of this group over here. And
yeah,
maybe it's like one produces it and the other consumes it, so that's why there's no net change. Same with T.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. I don't really like this because I don't know why this is being done, and they're not using the equations.
Yeah, but I mean, we're basically trying to show that private and public savings equal investment.
Yes, national savings. Yes, so that's sort of the overarching thing here, is that national or investment is private plus public, which equals national. Now, there's one other thing that the notes, the solution here shows that I don't understand. It goes n times x equals 0, and I don't know
National exports.
Okay, that's what that is. Okay.
Or net exports.
Net exports. Yeah, that makes more.
Yeah.
Exports.
So like if it
or imports
does
minus
it say
exports.
Closed economy? Yeah,
Yes,
closed
yes,
economy.
it does.
So
Yes.
you
Okay.
don't factor that in.
Okay. All right, so we can move to part B.
Yeah.
Now try to give some explanation of this.
Okay.
All right, so it says, suppose that by the Constitution, the government cannot run a deficit or a surplus. This kind of goes to that you were asking me at the end of the day, like, what does all this mean? I mean, we don't have this here. That's why a lot of times you see that in the news, deficit, surplus, all that stuff. Well, it's been a deficit for a while. So what is the equilibrium interest rate? So
putting the two equations equal to each other.
Yeah, you're figuring out where that is. So it's 500 minus 10R equals 50 plus 20R. Subtract 50 from both sides, add 10R to both sides. 450 equals 30R, divide by 30. 15%.
Okay.
All right, part C. So the thing that I'm noticing here, over and over again, is that you will do some sort of a calculation, and the next part is always like, well, what if it's a little bit less or a little bit more?
Yeah.
And that's where this one is going. It's saying, okay, well, now suppose that the rate is 10%, and don't worry about that deficit and
Yeah.
whatever that word means. You also know the total tax revenue of the government is 400, and the government decision on spending tax not dependent on interest rate. How much is the government spending? Okay. So we know that we can calculate the how do we did this in the other problem here. I'll just go back and look at that as well. We wrote that the savings national equals the savings public plus the savings private, and we then substituted in for, and this was in the last problem, we substituted for the private or the public part.
Yeah.
Go back and look at the solution here. So it says it's public. All right, so it says that use the we're taking, I guess one way to do this is to look at it as public equals 50. Okay, so it's the savings public, which we don't know, plus the private, which we do know, which is 50 plus 20R. And this equals the investment, which is 500 minus 10R.
Yes.
And so then we solve this for savings public. So the savings public, you're moving the 50, moving the 20R, and that's 450 minus 30R. Okay, and this is where I think that R equals 10 comes in. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
So that's 450 minus 30 times 10, which is 450 minus 300, so it's 150. Okay. And then the savings, I guess we use this equation in problem one. Savings public is T minus G. And so that the 150 is the savings public, and the 400 is the G.
Okay.
No, sorry, tax revenue. Sorry, tax revenue is that's T. Sorry, T. So 150 equals 400 minus G. So because these need to be in equilibrium, the government can spend 250 in this case.
Okay.
That's the more what we would like. The tax revenues are the only amount of money that can be spent in this hypothetical economy. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit there. In the problem we did yesterday, these were equal. So there was nothing that was available for G.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Is that good? Move on to 3 now.
Yes.
Okay. All right, consider an economy made up of 4 different groups, each of which contain 10 people who have the same income. The marginal tax rates for each group in the year 2013 are as follows. The output target YN is 5,000. What is, I know we've done this much time, but why is it to the, any idea why it's to the power of N? Is that for,
I think it just, I don't know if it's to the power. It might just mean like national output.
okay. All right. That would make sense. There's 4 groups, the national output. Okay. What was the average marginal tax rate for the economy in 2013? Now, important thing here is that all the groups are the same size. If they were not, it would be a weighted average, but since they're all the same size, you can just add them up and divide by the number of numbers.
Okay.
And you can work in percentages here, although typically you don't. But that does work for this type of problem. Any questions on that? It's just a standard average, 26.25% according to the solutions there.
No, that makes sense.
Okay. All right, so it says the tax, part B is the tax revenues. Tax revenues in 2013 were $1,000. What was the income for this economy? So a new equation here, big T equals tau times Y, and 1,000 is the T.
Got it. So
And
you
that,
would basically then put in the percentage we found beforehand.
yes, the point, the
Two
0.2625, and solve for
Y.
Y. Okay, and then this says that Y equals 3,809. Okay. Now the target output YN is 5,000. So there's kind of like an aside here where you're supposed to compare those two values.
And so because it's like the actual output is less.
Supposedly that means it's a recession,
Okay.
according to this problem here. And I don't know what it would be if it was the other way.
Got it.
There are words for positives, but I don't know that they're used very often.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right, next question here. All right, so it says group one, maybe I'll snip in group one, is the only group that contains people who receive unemployment benefits. So group one was at 15%. That paid to this group was $300. What was the average unemployment benefit transfer rate? Unemployment benefit transfer rate. So this is another equation, I guess. Unemployment benefit is U times YN minus Y, and they're telling you the value of UB, the unemployment benefit. The rate is what we're trying to find. That's U.
Okay.
And you're given YN from the previous parts of the problem. So are these equations you've seen before?
Yes.
Okay, I usually box them in when they seem important, the kind of thing that you might want to have in a test or
That's
quiz.
helpful.
Okay. So I guess it didn't matter that it was 15%.
Yeah.
So when you solve here, you get U equals 25.2%. Assume all these calculations are right. I'm not checking them.
Yeah.
Structure. Okay, group two. Group two is the only group that contains people who receive Social Security benefits. Okay, receive $50 in Social Security benefits. Okay, so this TR, which that's transfer payments. And I don't know if that's the same TR as we saw earlier. You were talking about tax
It
rate.
probably is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like plus minus. I guess the transfer payments have to net out to zero. Maybe double check that with the teacher. Professor.
Yeah.
So they're saying here that the transfer payments, transferring literally means from one group to another. So they're saying they're divided among Social Security and unemployment benefits.
Yeah. And that just like makes sense.
Yeah. So they're saying it's each member of the group. There's 10 people in the group. So they 10 times 50. And then where do we get the previous one? So it said that in the previous problem here, it said that to the whole group was $300. So it's not 10 times 300. It's just the 300 from the unemployment benefits.
Okay,
And because it's asking for the economy.
Got it.
800.
And because their group
So
one
only
is
group.
the only one, but
Yeah,
got
group
it.
one's the only get unemployment benefits. Group two is the only one that got Social Security.
Okay. That
And
makes sense.
in a real economy, that may not be this true, but I think the idea is to keep this as simple
Yeah.
as possible.
Okay.
All right, part E. Notice the simplicity of the equations, adding,
Yeah.
subtracting, multiplying. I mean, don't overthink it on the exam if you're unsure. It's going to be a simple math operation. The actual primary budget deficit in 2013 was $1,200. What was the amount of government spending? So we go back here. I think so that this DE refers to a couple of
The
things here. It's government spending plus SS plus UB, and you can, sorry, minus the, no, is there more? Yes. Huh. See what I don't, okay, what I'm trying to do here is as I'm trying to not just write the equations, I'm trying to show you where it comes from.
yeah, no, I appreciate that.
But what I'm not seeing here is minus this tax rate, tax revenue. So is this true? Is it usually minus T? Or G
I believe,
minus T?
yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so the
Because and that would make sense because the deficit
it's
minus
sorry, I didn't mean to.
the revenue that you get, because a deficit would be negative. So
Yes,
to counteract what the government is getting, it would be minus the tax revenue or the tax.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the next thing, so they tell you the value of DE. Okay, G is what we're trying to find. That's the variable of interest. This SS we're reusing from a previous problem, but if you wanted to, if you want to, like, it's like N times whatever it is, N times P, the payment. I don't know if you just want to put the numbers in, but you want to know where these come from. So maybe I'll rewrite like this. The notes, they reuse UB, which is the
300.
the unemployments were 300. Yeah. And I don't know if you want to go back and like, okay, well, what was UB? It was this equation here, but you don't need that because you already have the number.
Yeah.
And the tax revenue was from part, sorry for all the scrolling, part B.
Which is 1,000.
Yes. And what I did notice is that this is, so some of the problems here, they say, you know, like go back to this part. This one sort of assumes that you're just building on each part. So just
Yeah.
always pay attention to whether you actually can go back or not.
Okay.
Or restart. Okay, so solving for G, you end up getting 1,400.
Perfect.
Okay, so notice the keyword here, it's primary in this problem. And then in part F, it's structural. And I guess there's a difference.
Okay.
That's a key thing though to
Oh, the
notice.
actual versus the structural.
Yes, because the equation changes here. It's they go to DE star, and the DE star equation is somewhat similar, but it's G plus SS minus T. So it does not include the unemployment benefit for some reason. I might ask that. I might say, why is the primary, or what's the difference in primary and structural? You know, I see it drops, the UB drops out, but that's just the math.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so
okay, yeah, that makes.
so you're reusing G from the previous line, you're reusing the SS from the previous part of the problem, but the T now is different. Like, and I don't know why you go back to using a new equation for T, because in the previous problem we didn't. We just used the tax from part B. So they go back to using this tau y to the n. So the tau is that rate we found, and y to the n is the 5,000. That's, again, like I would probably ask that. I'd want to know why I'm not just using And I'm sure it has to do with the structural part, but
Yeah, I think because, well, what I would think the like structural, because then it goes on to cyclical. So you're dealing with like structural cyclical unemployment.
Mhm.
So with structural, you don't include benefits, and then the cyclical, I don't know. I'll ask about that, but like something to do with the different types of unemployment.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, it's something to do with that because it's structural. And you're right. The next part here, this is all structural. So you get that number. For cyclical, they go that it's just a simple calculus, is DE minus DE star. So it's the
Yeah.
two previous results. It's the 1200 minus the result from this previous line. So that's just a definition. Cyclical is actual minus structural. Let me write that down.
Is
Any other thoughts, comments, questions on that?
no, this makes sense. I'm just double checking everything. And then 612. Yes, okay. That makes sense.
All right, exercise 4 starts out very similarly. They tell you it's a closed economy. They tell you it's 5 different groups. I think we had 4 in the last one. 20 people in each group instead of 10. Okay, no big deal. They give you the YN. It's just a little bit larger than the previous one. And they want the average marginal tax rate for the economy as a whole. So again, you're just going to add all these up. 10
Take the
plus
average.
15. Yes. And this ends up being 25%. So here's you probably know this, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. Like one of the things you could do is use the information from 4 right here, because you start out basically the same,
Yeah.
and redo all the other parts for the previous problem just to see if you understand it.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I like that idea a lot, actually.
Yeah, I mean the numbers may not make sense, but you just that way you're not just copying
Yeah.
the
No,
the
I like that if
calculations.
we want to start on 5 instead, and then that
Yeah.
gives
Okay.
me
So
opportunity.
All right, you are told that tax revenues from income taxes were $100,000. So this is the same equation. And one of the things I like about the notes from the previous problem is I think they start out with the governing equation here. They're telling you the taxes, you have the tax rate, you can calculate the income for the economy.
Yeah.
All right, so you got 100,000 equals 0.25 y. And so when you solve for y, you get 400,000. And you compare this to the target output yn. And again, y is less than yn, which was 1 million.
Got
So
it.
I guess recession. That's probably maybe another thing I would ask was, what if it's the other way? What would we say there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
Part C. All right, group 1 is composed of people on welfare. So we know that there are 20 people in group 1. They receive unemployment benefits. No other person received these benefits. Total amount of unemployment benefits paid was $50,000. Can you find the average unemployment benefit transfer rate. So we saw this in part C of the previous problem. It was UB equals U YN minus Y. And we have those
Yes.
numbers now, which we have the fact that it's $50,000 here.
For UB.
And then 1 million minus 400,000. Just check that
Got
that
it. And
is,
then we're just solving for you.
yes. And you end up finding U is 8.33%.
Got it.
All right, next part here. So it's really similar here. This time they're doing Social Security benefits. Each in group 2 receives $1,000, so it's 20 times $1,000 is your Social Security. But we should always start by talking about the total transfers in this economy. The total transfers TR is SS plus UB. So you get your UB from the previous problem, which was the 50,000.
Yes.
Yeah. 50,000. Yeah, 50,000. And then the SS is the 20 people receiving $1,000.
So 70,000 would be
Yes.
total transfers.
Yeah, and you'll see this like every time on this other screen I've got up, I'm going back to the previous equation to try to start it out.
Yeah.
So that you can see where they're coming from. Because it's really very similar here for this. So $70,000 in total transfers.
Got it.
Okay, so where this kind of deviates here for part D, so we may want to actually go back. It says to compute the cyclical primary budget deficit for this economy in 2012. So when I go back and look at where that was asked in the previous problem, they don't ask that until after you calculate the primary budget deficit. So they're asking for DE minus DE star.
Okay.
And when I see something like that, I would think, okay, let's first find DE. DE is G plus SS plus UB minus T. And they simplify it though, because if you prefer that, they simplify it to G plus the transfer payments, because we have that from part C minus T. Like they're saying that's these two make up TR. Just depends how comfortable you are if you want to just shortcut that. I am not.
Yeah, I prefer it written out.
Okay. So in that previous problem though, they told you they tell you the value of DE. Here they don't. Here they tell you G.
Okay.
So I take this to mean that it's if we're doing this, it's 200,000 plus the 70,000 for the transfer payments, and then the tax is 100,000. I'm just going to double check those, but that's kind of where I'm seeing. Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. So that gives you 170,000 for DE. So DE star though is related. It's, go back and look. It's G plus only SS minus T, but this time the T isn't the same T. It's from the tax rate we calculated. So I'm not sure how we just talked about that, but it's the 200,000 plus the 50, no, it was 20,000 for the social security. The T this time is tau tax rate times YN. So the tax rate we got in an earlier part of the problem is 0.25. And then YN was the 1 million.
And why? Oh, this got it. Never mind. Okay.
So you got to be very careful with your solution in red isn't showing like the like what we're doing here. They're just sort of giving you the output, the answer
Yeah.
of that. I like kind of knowing where they come from.
Yeah.
This is 250,000. And this is this ends up being negative. I wasn't sure if we are going to see that. This ends up being negative 30,000. So we go back to the kind of main equation here. Your DE is 170,000 minus your DE. Your DE is minus 30,000. So your DE minus DE star 170,000 minus a minus 30,000 equals 200,000.
Minus negative. That equals positive. Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
All right. Problem 5. Looks like we're moving to a new type of problem here. Okay, so this is the first part. Let me snip in the second part. In 2008, the recent crisis was just unfolding. Greek government debt was not yet an issue, although it was 115% of GDP, which allowed the Greek government to pay a nominal interest rate of just 4.35% on its debt. However, things went bad in 2009 and recession was expected. The government decided to increase its primary deficit from 5% to 10% of GDP to avoid a contraction in the GDP, which was roughly 30 billion euros. Assume the government expansion was successful, unchanged from GDP. What was the debt at the end of 2009 in billions of dollars? Okay. Wow. So how do we want to start here? There's some sort of formula here. BT plus 1. Does that at all look familiar?
No.
Okay. that's what I'm asking, because there's it looks like they're using these subscripts for a reason. Plus 1 plus IT BT. This is some sort of recursive relationship. And it all look familiar to you?
A little bit, not enough for, I'd assume.
Okay, so let me try to, it's based on numbers, tell you what each of these are. So this is the G of T minus T of T. Sorry, that's G of T minus T of T is this is the government. I don't want to say this. This is the deficit from the previous year.
Yes.
And so that's government spending minus taxes. Is that consistent with what you've been seeing? Because I'm asking because I want to make sure. The I is the interest rate. It's literally an interest rate. That's I in this problem. And the 1 is just part of the equation. B of T is the debt. Maybe, hang on. It says it's the debt from the previous year. Probably would be wise to ask if these are true. I'm doing that based on the like the numbers they're putting into the equation and just going back to reading the words. So this would give you the debt in the new year. Okay, so now we can like calculate some of this, but yeah, I'd like a little more clarity on this. So it looks like they start out by finding the debt in 2008. The debt in 2008, that T is the year. That's this BT right here. So maybe make that clear. So they're saying that is 230 billion. That's this number here. But they have to pay 115% of its GDP. So this is where I don't understand. They're using this number in this calculation right here. And I don't know why that is.
And that would be the
115% of its GDP. So if the debt was not an issue yet, although it was 100% of its GDP, because that could, yeah, that is the debt at the end.
The debt was, or the GDP was 230 and the debt was 115%
Of its GDP.
of its GDP. So
that's
we're
why.
calculating
Yeah.
how much. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, we know it's GDP and the debt is 115. So I guess that makes sense now. So that's where that number comes from, 264.5. So that's one down, a couple to go. The I of T value, which is the interest rate in 2008, that's given in the allow the Greek government to pay a nominal interest rate of just 4.35% on its debt. So that's 0.0435. Okay.
Got it.
The G of T formula minus T of T. This is where they tell you the deficit. So they tell you G of 2008 minus T of 2008. They don't give you those specific values. They just tell you that it ran a deficit of 230. So they just tell you that the difference in these is 230. They're not
230.
they're not doing any more than that. And then they're saying they're multiplying it by 0.1. Why? Oh, because they increased their primary deficit
to 10%.
Yeah. Okay, so that's
the GDP. Got it. Okay.
Okay, so that ends up being 23. So now we go back to our original equation. We have the B of T, we have the I of T, we have the G of T minus T of T. So the debt in 2009 is the deficit plus 1 plus 0.0435 times 264.5.
And that's just like plugging it in for the equation.
That's putting, so I like to write the overarching equation, get each of them, and then because if you don't find one, at least you're kind of showing what you know. You're like, well, I know it's that, and if I didn't, if I knew this, it would be that. And then you get, let's see here. Now that's not the answer. You end up getting 299 because I think
it's over the GDP because it's a percentage of the GDP.
Yes. What was the debt? That's part A, or subscript I, and then percentage of GDP would be 299
over 230.
over 230, which is 130%.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little complex, but I think I understand it.
Okay, now there's possibly an error in the formula this is where I'll be careful. This formula right here, G of T and T of T, when I look at the solution to part B, their subscripting is off. They're using T plus 1 here, T plus 1 here. And I don't know if that, could be a copy and paste error. I would really double check this formula.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to make sure, because the
I can definitely do that.
right. So part B appears to be like the other types of continuations of these where they make some changes to the numbers that we just used. So spend plenty of time in that first part to make sure you get it right. Although successful, the increase in the debt made the interest rate go up to 8.2% in 2009. So they're saying now your I of 2009 is 0.082 instead of the 0.0435.
Got it.
The government was unable to prevent a contraction in GDP, which fell 3% in 2010. Where does that come into play? Not sure. If by the end of 2010, the debt to GDP ratio was 150%, what was the government's deficit in that year? Okay. So okay, there's where we get using 3% GDP. So in the GDP in 2010, which is just, I guess, kind of off to the side here, it's the GDP from the previous year, 230, but then it's 1 minus 0.03.
So 0.97.
Yes, so it went down. The debt ratio, so we know the debt from 2000, we know the debt in 2010 is 150% of the debt to GDP ratio, which we just calculated. No, sorry, that is the debt. So we did this in the previous part here. The GDP, where do we do that? Oh, it was given. So the GDP was given 230. And we used that a couple of times. Just the debt was a function of GDP. So it's 1.5 times the GDP in 2010. And that's your B of T plus 1, which maybe isn't very clear. Okay, so B of T plus 1 equals G of T minus T of T plus 1 plus I of T and then B of T. So here's where these numbers start getting used up.
Okay.
We needed to calculate this B of T plus 1, and that's this value here. Okay. Now why is that again? B of T plus 1 is the debt. This is the debt. Yes, this is the debt in 2010.
Okay.
So B of T plus 1 in this new problem is the debt in 2010. So the way these recursive work is the new year is a function of the previous year, typically.
Yes.
So you've got this result here, which is
The
334.65. 334.65 equals, we don't know these values right here.
So that's like what we're solving? No.
Probably. Yes, probably.
Yes.
Okay, probably. We don't know these values, but we do know we do know that the interest rate is 1 plus 0.082. That was calculated there. And the B of T is the debt from the previous year. This is the debt in 2009, which we
So
calculated from
the
the
20.
previous,
Oh, okay, got it.
I believe. Yes.
And then we solve for that chunk in the middle, basically.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna actually do that because I don't really like the way I don't know that I see it. Just so. Okay, so it ends up being that this is, when you solve for it, it is 11.1, like it says there.
Okay.
But that's not the answer. There's always like this extra little thing. It says, what was the government deficit in that year? The deficit is, wait, percentage of, I think it's missing some words in the actual question. The question says, what was the government deficit in that year? That is the answer we have.
Yeah.
But then it's almost like the solutions go on to do what we did here in this previous problem, which was, and as a percentage of GDP. So
So if it was a percentage, then it would be the 11.1
out of the GDP
over
from 2010, which is the 223.
223, which is why that comes in.
Says it's about 5%, whether you believe it or not. Okay, that will take us to the end of our lesson